The NFL schedule has dropped, and that means it is time to start adjusting how we draft best ball teams, adjust our rankings for playoffs and buys, and it's also time to start drafting eliminators on Underdog, one of my favorite formats. So let's go. Welcome into the Draft Live, everybody. I'm Joel Worth, and this is the IDP Plus Best Ball podcast. I want to give a shout out to Spectrum. This is take 2 of the podcast. A little bit of unannounced, scheduled downtime the last time I tried to record this. So shout out to them, but it's all good. Good players overcome that. The schedule has dropped. Like I said, it is time to adjust how we draft our best ball teams, adjust our rankings. No more fingers crossed and hoping we don't hit double buys on our onesie positions. We've got to start drafting around that. So let's get to it. Let's start talking about the buys right away. And we're going to start with week 5. I did go back, look through my pre-schedule release teams that I've drafted. I did have 4 2 quarterback teams that both hit the buy and 2 tight end teams that both hit the buy. Not ideal, not the end of the world though. So one of those 2 tight end teams kicks in here in week 5. We got Chicago, Green Bay, Pittsburgh, and Atlanta. Did have a Colston, Loveland, Tucker Kraft team. Again, you can survive a double tight end buy. That's not the end of the world. As long as your tight ends are getting, 10 to 12 points every week, you can probably survive a 0 at tight end. A lot of teams are going to have soft tight end weeks. So not the end of the world, but obviously not ideal. There is an issue with the quarterbacks here because you've got 3 quarterbacks who could conceivably all be drafted to the same team based on their ADPs. You got Caleb Williams going around pick 100, Jordan Love going around pick 125, and then Michael Penix goes around pick in the 145, 148 range. So you can conceivably have all 3 of those guys on the same team and get hit with a buy for all 3. That would be rough, but not too likely. But again, that's something you need to work around. That's not a workable 3 quarterback roster at this point anymore. Also, you have a bunch of tight or wide receivers kind of grouped in that 65 to 95 cluster that you're going to have to not want to take too many of, because you don't want to have too many of your guys on the same bye week and just to end up taking zeros from one of your spots. You got Rome Odunze from Chicago. You've got Matthew Golden, Jaden Reed, Darnell Mooney from Atlanta. They all go in that big kind of cluster. So just be careful when you're drafting those wide receivers. You don't want to have too many of them on the same bye. Week 6, we've got Houston and Minnesota, another one of my double tight end teams. I had a TJ Hawkins and Dalton Schultz team. Don't like that. I'm not sure I'm going to get enough from those 2 consistently to make that a workable double buy, but not the end of the world. I don't think anybody was taking CJ Stroud and JJ McCarthy by themselves. I don't think that's a very strong quarterback room, so not too high a risk of the double quarterback buy there. But you do have a lot of receivers on these 2 teams. So you want to be careful of taking too many buys. Obviously, you're not getting Justin Jefferson and Nico Collins on the same team, but Jordan Addison and then the Houston guys, Higgins, Clark, Jalen Noel, or Kirk. I'm sorry, not Clark. So you want to be careful. Don't overload your receivers on the same bye week. Week 7 is very interesting. You've got Baltimore, Buffalo. So Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson obviously is the key one here. I've seen a lot of teams that were taking Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson at kind of the 3-4 turn at picks 36, 37. I did see quite a bit of that before the schedule was dropped. A lot of those teams ended up taking a third quarterback, which is not something I would want to do if I'd spent that much draft capital on my 2 quarterbacks. But obviously those teams were pretty prophetic and knew what they were doing. So but not something I think you can do or that you want to do going forward. Obviously, I don't like spending. I am interested in having elite quarterback this year. It's something I definitely want to do, but I don't want to spend that much draft capital on my quarterbacks. And just the marginal utility of having a second elite quarterback is just not that much. You're not gaining that much from a player who's only going to start. They may start as many times, they may even out the starts, but the point difference between the 2 is just not that much relative to a receiver or a running back that you can get at that rate. At pick 37, you're talking a Mike Evans type, a Kyron Williams type. You're talking pretty obvious starters and pretty good players that you're passing on to take the double elite quarterback. So tough draw there. But again, not something I'm really doing. And week 8 is our first and only bipocalypse this year. Remember, last year we had 2 bipocalypses in week 12 and week 14. This one comes earlier, and there's only one, so that's a good thing. But it is a tough bye to navigate. Arizona, Detroit, Jacksonville, the Raiders, the Rams, and the Seahawks. Some really a lot of back end quarterbacks that you'd like to take here. Geno Smith, Sam Darnold, uh, Matthew Stafford, your kind of fallback quarterbacks all kind of go here. Jared Goff and Trevor Lawrence is a popular pairing as a 2-3. And then obviously Kyler's involved here. So a lot of quarterbacks that you want to take here. So be careful around there. And again, good thing that we've only got one bipocalypse this year. You would think the league could navigate around that and not necessarily have to have 6 teams on bye in the same week, especially when you can see we've got 3 weeks with only 2 teams on bye. But is what it is. We'll deal with it. Week 9, this is where I got caught in the double QB bye. Jalen Hurts and Justin Fields has been one of my favorite QB stacks. So that's yeah. I've been taking a ton of Jalen Hurts. I'm almost constitutionally incapable of passing on him in round 5. And I do like Garrett Wilson a lot this year. So I've been taking a lot of Justin Fields. Had a couple Hurts Justin Fields teams. Now you've got to take a third quarterback with that, and I don't necessarily like doing that. So I'm probably not going to have too many more of those. And then you got Baker Mayfield as well, who's pretty popular to stack with to go with Jalen Hurts teams. And you could conceivably do, if you want to take 2 quarterbacks in that same area, just double up right around pick 100 and picking 90 to 110. You could do the Baker Mayfield Justin Fields teams. I'm sure a lot of people got stuck there. So tough draw in that bye week. Obviously, Cleveland's not hurting anything because nobody's drafting Cleveland quarterbacks, but not a big deal there. Week 10, Cincinnati, Dallas, Kansas City, Tennessee. Now you've got another big quarterback conundrum if you take Joe Burrow early. Nice to stack with Dak Prescott. Certainly I have one team that had a Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott team that got kind of bit. And then you also got Patrick Mahomes. Cam Ward's not really an issue. He's a third quarterback at best. So, but definitely some elite receivers here. Obviously Chase, Higgins, Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, and then the Kansas City guys, Worthy and Rashee Rice. So a lot of receivers that you need to be careful of in this area. Calvin Ridley as well. So again, another bye week that you need to watch your receivers in. Week 11, not kind of a freebie. Nobody's really relying on Indy or New Orleans teams. Maybe you have a Jonathan Taylor, Alvin Kamara team, but obviously not the end of the world there. Not too much draft capital being stuck into those 2 teams. Week 12, Denver, the Chargers, Miami, Washington. Another tough quarterback bye week. Jaden Daniels, Justin Herbert, Bo Nix. Herbert and Nix go fairly close. 2 was a nice back end kind of QB3, maybe QB2 if you want to go 3 quarterbacks late. So popular pairings here: Jaden Daniels, Justin Herbert. That was another one I got stuck with. So yeah, that pairing gets kind of tough now because you're spending a lot of draft capital on Jaden Daniels. You spend another top 110 pick basically on Justin Herbert. I don't really want to go to a third quarterback there. And same thing with Bo Nix. So those 2 pairings become very tricky. And then finally we get to week 14, Carolina, New England, the Giants, and San Francisco. Some nice running backs in this range. You obviously get Christian McCaffrey at the top, Chuba Hubbard, Trevion Henderson, and then the Cam Scatterbo, Tyrone Tracy pairing. So this is a week that your running backs can get caught up into. I have seen a lot of talk online about, why is the NFL doing buys on week 14, the last week of the fantasy playoffs? Why aren't we doing it on week 13? Remember, week 13 is Thanksgiving. And if you think about it, you've got 3 games on Thanksgiving. You've got 1 game now on Black Friday. The league's not going away from those games. They're making too much money off of that. And if you have, you got 4 games before you get to Sunday, now you put even 2 teams on bye. You just don't have the inventory of Sunday games to keep the network partners happy. So you're just not going to see bye weeks on Thanksgiving week. So that is what it is. Not necessarily is it always going to be like that. Obviously, the league has started early the last 2 years with Labor Day being early. Thanksgiving's been late. So it may not necessarily always be week 13 that won't have buys, but just understand that Thanksgiving week isn't going to have buys. And so if, you're going to if you don't want to have mega by apocalypses again, you're going to have week 14 buys. It's just the way it is. It sucks for fantasy players, but again, the league doesn't care about fantasy players as much as they care about their network partners, because that's where they make their money from. So that is it for the buys. Before we get to the playoffs, let's talk about our friends at Fast Draft. Start drafting faster with fastdraft.app. So many cool contests on here. You've got the Origins contest, which is all rookies. You've got the IDP contest, very popular around here. And now they're doing all kinds of special promos. Check out, they're doing free drafts on Fridays if you're doing set your lineups. So get in to fastdraft.app, get on their mailing list, all kinds of special promos and stuff going on. Very fun drafts. And if you sign up now with code plus Joel, PLUS JOEL, you will get a deposit match of up to $50. So check out our friends at Fast Draft. Very cool stuff going on there, and we appreciate their partnership. All right, let's get this out of here and let's go to the playoff schedule. I want to talk about the teams. Obviously, you can find all kinds of stuff online about who has the best Week 17 matchups. I want to talk about who has the best overall playoff matchups, right? If you don't get to Week 17, Week 17 doesn't matter. So I want to talk about who's got the best and worst playoff matchups for all 3 weeks of the fantasy playoffs, especially the best ball playoffs. So let's start with Miami. Tough game Week 15 at Pittsburgh, but then they've got Cincinnati and Tampa at home. So 2 pretty soft matchups on Week 17 and Week 16. So we like that. Pittsburgh's tough, obviously, but 2 very, very soft matchups to kind of end the fantasy playoffs. Houston, one of 2 teams with 3 dome games in the playoffs. Obviously, we don't want to penalize teams for having outdoor games or cold weather games. It's not the kind of death sentence it used to be, but we do like dome games, right? We'd like the climate controlled games. So Houston gets 3 of them, and 3 not terrible defenses: Arizona and Las Vegas at home, and then at the Chargers. Obviously, Houston did pretty well against the Chargers in that wild card playoff game last year. So pretty good matchups and 3 games in the dome. We like that. So good playoff schedule for Houston. Philadelphia, Vegas at home, at Washington. Did a lot of shootouts with the Commanders last year, especially in the championship game. Obviously, they've got the Commanders' number. And then at Buffalo, again, that's a tough matchup on paper, but we saw a couple of years ago that game, I think, had a 65-point total. So when you've got elite offenses, you've always got the potential for a shootout. So like the Philly schedule. And then I guess I like the entire NFC South. Obviously, 4 teams, all have pretty bad defenses, all play in favorite climates. A couple of them are in domes. So you don't have to worry about weather with those teams. And like none of them have a elite defenses. They've decent defenses, but none of them have elite defenses. So we like all 4 of those teams. Atlanta, obviously one of my favorite Week 17 games, and you get the Monday night game with the Rams. Remember last year we talked about how you're going to have an all-time sweat waiting for that Monday night game to finish if you had a lead in your fantasy championship and you didn't have any 49ers or Lions. That played out exactly like we thought. So again, I think this is going to be a similar game. This could be a track meet with the Falcons and the Rams in Week 17. Also got at Tampa, at Arizona, so 2 pretty not necessarily tough defenses going on there. Carolina's at New Orleans, got Tampa at home and Seattle at home. Like those matchups. New Orleans, Carolina at home, Jets at home, and then at Tennessee. Not a bad climate matchup there, even though it's outdoors. And then Tampa's got Atlanta at home, at Carolina, at Miami. Not tough. So, yeah, the entire NFC South, I think, has very favorable playoff matchups. And then one more is Detroit, the other team that has all 3 dome games in the playoffs. At the Rams, Pittsburgh at home, and then at Minnesota. That game at Minnesota was a barn burner last year. Don't expect anything different this year. Now let's talk about the teams with the worst playoff matchups. Not too many have really bad matchups. Unfortunately, one is my team, the Green Bay Packers, at Denver, at Chicago, Baltimore at home. 3 games outdoors, 3 games in kind of tough, cold climates, and then 3 good defenses, right? You get the Broncos, you get the Bears, you get the Ravens. All 3 have good defenses. So that's a bit of a gauntlet for the Packers in the fantasy playoffs. The other team is New England. Again, a similar, pretty tough. All three outdoors in cold climates. Yeah, not necessarily cold, but not necessarily temperate climates. Buffalo at Baltimore, and then at the Jets. Three tough defenses, similar to Green Bay. Three very good defenses, and all outdoors. So tough schedule for New England. And then the Cleveland Browns, the poor Cleveland Browns at Chicago, Buffalo at home, Pittsburgh at home, all three outdoors, all three in cold climates, all three very good defenses. So tough schedule for the Browns. You want to drop down Jerry Jeudy a bit, not be so high on Quinshon Judkins. Those are the players that are getting high draft capital, but tough schedule for the Browns. So those are the toughest playoff schedules, I think. Only three teams that I think have really negative playoff schedules. Again, New England, Cleveland, and Green Bay. A lot of teams with very favorable playoff schedules. Again, you want to take the whole playoffs kind of holistically, especially if you're talking about a sprint on Underdog, where it's not elimination weeks; it's just the entirety of the playoffs. So these are the teams you want to kind of think about drafting. Maybe push them up a little bit in your rankings. Those teams that have good playoff schedules. So before we talk about the Eliminator, it's time to talk about the Fantasy Football Expo coming to Canton, Ohio, right here, my backyard, August 8th through 10th. Just my favorite weekend of the year. So many great people, so much fun. You've got the poker tournament put on by football guys, the icebreaker. You've got the parties on Friday and Saturday. The drafts, so many drafts, so much going on, all meet and greets with experts. Just so much. You cannot pack more into a weekend than the Fantasy Football Expo right here, Canton, Ohio. So go to the fantasyfootballexpo.com, get yourself signed up. Prices go up every month. So you want to get in now before the prices get raised up as you go along. So do that now, Fantasy Football Expo, and make your plans to join us here in Canton, Ohio, the week of August 8th through the 10th. All right, now it is time to talk about my favorite format on Underdog, and that is the Eliminator. What makes the Eliminator so special? It is the fact that every week is a playoff week, right? Every week it's basically an NCAA tournament. It's win or go home. Last year, you had kind of really inconsistent pods, right? It was week one was your draft pod, and you had to be in the top half, and then it was like 3 of 5 or 6 of 10 or something like that. It was really inconsistent. This year, props out to Underdog. They have done a great job with this. It's week one is your draft pod, so 6 of 12 advance, the top half advance. And then after that, every week until week 17, it is one-on-one, just you against one other team, win or go home. So this is going to be just a fantastic sweat. It's going to be so much fun. Just absolutely cannot wait for this. Going to be an absolutely fun tournament. So you want to look at the prize structure here a little bit. If you make it through week 3, you get your money back. So you got to like that. Obviously, it's tough, right? Only one of 8 teams is going to get through to week 3. It's a real simple calculation. 1 over 2 to the n, where n is the week number. That's how many teams advance out of that week, or what percentage of the pool advances through that week. So 1 out of 8 teams in the pool is going to get through week 3. But if you do, you make your money back. And then you can see as you go on, week 4, again, double it, $20, you double your money. Get through week 5, $30. You still got a 3% chance of getting through that. And then on down the line, $50, $100, $200. As you go, the prizes basically double every week. So this is, like I said, this is going to be an absolutely fun sweat. And then when you get to the end, week 17, it's a 3-player pod, $200,000 to the winner, $100,000 for second place, and then $76,000 for third place. This is just absolutely going to be a blast. I cannot wait for this and try and max this tournament out because it is so fun. So let's talk about what makes this tournament different and how should we approach it. How do we draft differently because we have an every week elimination rather than a 14-week regular season and then 3 playoff weeks. So first of all, I want to do early quarterback. This is a format that I want to draft quarterbacks early, and I want an elite quarterback. I wanted Josh Allen. I wanted Jaden Daniels. I wanted Lamar Jackson. I wanted Jalen Hurts. Joe Burrow, Baker Mayfield, those guys. I want an early quarterback, and you can see in the ADPs for this tournament, Josh Allen's a second round pick, Lamar Jackson's a second round pick. So you've got to jump. If any of those players drop to round 3, I think you want to absolutely pounce on them. The difference having an elite quarterback is very significant. That 25-point weekly upside, as opposed to the 18 or 17-point upside of your second tier quarterbacks. Man, that's a huge difference in a one-on-one tournament. Just having that security of that high, super high floor and the elite upside makes those quarterbacks absolutely worth chasing. So I do want to draft quarterback early, and I'm almost always going to do a 3 QB build because I just quarterbacks are your most reliable and your highest scoring players regularly. So I want to have 3 quarterbacks. Just keep that high floor and maintain that ceiling. So I'm almost always going to have a third quarterback. I want to draft players for who they are instead of what they could be. I think this is really important. You don't want to overload your team with rookies. You want to have known quantities. You want to know what these players can do. You want to have players who have solid roles, volume, chase the volume, players who get touches. There's a very high correlation between players who get touches, who get snaps, and being a good player, right? So, and that's what's important because volume leads to fantasy points. Touches lead to fantasy points. Targets lead to fantasy points. And that's what we mean when you want a high floor and a high ceiling. That volume, that playing time is very crucial in this tournament. You cannot take zeros in this tournament. You're going to get wiped out. You just have to be able to have a high floor every week and a high ceiling to be able to get through these weeks. So draft players from good offenses. Obviously, if you're talking about a player on the Cleveland Browns and say a player on the Dallas Cowboys or the Philadelphia Eagles, those players are just going to have higher floors because they have, their offenses put up more production. They have more possessions. They have more touches. They score more points than, a team with a bad quarterback, like the Giants, the Browns. We don't want to penalize Malik Neighbors too much because he's shown he can be an elite player even with a bad quarterback. But all things preferred, all things being even, if you get to, you're deciding between 2 players, you want to pick the player on the better offense because that's going to lead to more opportunities, just more plays, more possessions. Again, don't overload with rookies. In a season-long tournament, we can say, okay, yeah, I know this receiver is going to take a little bit of time to develop, but once we get to the playoffs, he's going to be a league winner for me. You don't have that luxury in a weekly elimination league. You can't afford for these players to be finding their footing along the way because you're going to get eliminated before they ever get their feet on the ground, basically. So don't overload with one here and there. That's fine, but you don't want to have a team. It's conceivable you could have a team with 6, 7 rookies on a regular best ball team. Not going to fly here. You're going to take too many zeros to be able to get through 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks of single elimination. And then obviously the reason we're waiting to draft eliminators is because we want to pay attention to the bye weeks in the schedule, right? You can't overload your team with players on the same bye week because again, in a 1 week elimination format, if you have again 6, 7 players with a week 8 bye, when we talked about the bye apocalypse on week 8, how are you going to get through? Now, it's really tough to get to week 8. I don't want to minimize that point. It's tough to get to week 5. Only 3% of the teams are going to get through week 5. But once you get there, if you've got that sweat going on, if you got a potential to make big money, you don't want to be walking into a wall of having a bunch of teams on the same, or a bunch of players on the same bye week and not, there's just no way you're going to be able to get through that. Just knowing that you kind of endpointed your team, you want to be able to get through the final. You want to have a good chance to get through the final. So don't overload your team with the same bye week. Stacking is fine, right? You can still stack your quarterback with a wide receiver. You can stack your quarterback and wide receiver with a late round pick, a round 18 pick or something like that. That's okay. But I don't want to do avalanche teams in this format, right? I don't want to take 6 Packers when they got a week 5 bye or early bye. I don't want to take, a bunch of Caleb Williams and 3 receivers, DJ Moore and Roma Dunze and Colson Loveland or something like that. I don't want to be overstacking the same team, because once that team hits a bye, now you're basically playing 4 horses short, and that is really tough to do. So again, keep an eye on the buys. Don't overload your teams. Don't do avalanche stacks. We don't want to do that in this format, because you just don't want to put yourself behind the 8 ball of not having players available to you during those weeks. If you've made it to those weeks, you want to have a chance to get through that week. You want to be able to have that sweat going. So don't overload your team with the same bye week. And then we want to talk about week 1. I've seen some discussion on this about, should you optimize for week 1? I've seen a lot of people say, week 1 is the toughest week because you still have to beat 6 teams. I look at it from the other side. In week 1, you have to beat 55% of the teams that aren't you. In every other week, you have to beat 100% of the teams that aren't you. So I think week 1 is the easiest week to get through. But there's a little bit of game theory going on here, a little bit of prisoner's dilemma, in that if the field is optimizing for week 1 and you're not, your teams are going to struggle out of week 1. And that's the worst case scenario, is that you get a bunch of teams that don't get through week 1. So be cognizant of that. I'm not going to force week 1, but just kind of watch your draft room and see, look at the schedule for week 1, see which games you like, and just kind of don't put yourself behind the 8 ball of, I've got a bunch of Dallas Cowboys who have to play the Eagles week 1, tough matchup, stuff like that. So be aware of week 1. It's the week. Obviously, you have to get through week 1 to get to week 2. But it's not. I don't think week 1 is the toughest week. I honestly, I think it's probably the easiest week. So week 1 key, but we don't want to overstress it. That is it for this week. The schedule is out. Again, we know what we want to do now. So no more fingers crossed. Draft your best ball teams according to the schedule, not with your fingers crossed, and get in those eliminator tournaments. So much fun. We want to fill those rooms. Has been filling a little bit faster. Props up. Shout out to everyone in New York. Glad you're back online in Underdog. The rooms are filling fast. Eliminators have been a little bit slow to fill. Obviously, I think a lot of people are waiting for the schedule to drop and be able to analyze the schedule and stuff like that. So now you've got your schedule analysis. It's time to jump in those rooms. Thanks everyone for watching. Do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We've got so much stuff coming out. All our friends here at IDP Plus, Axton and Johnny, the OP guys, Randy, so much cool stuff coming down the pike. All kinds of IDP stuff from Ricky. Great stuff coming on. So check out the channel. Check out the site, idpplus.com. Get a subscription now so you don't miss out on anything along the way to the season. Thanks for checking out the show, and we will see you next week.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.